Today we're going to dive into postures in marriage.
Posturing.
Postures in marriage. Not intimate postures, but postures.
What would be an intimate posture? There we go. Exactly.
Postures in marriage. But like, when I'm talking about postures in marriage, like one posture to be like, I'm going to be in this marriage for what I can get out of the marriage, right? I'm going to have an inward focus. It's going to be about me, my needs, a selfishness, and a focus on me versus what can I give in marriage. It was great. One of your mentors was so awesome. When we met him, he said, Skylar, I'm going to outgive you. He's like, that's my goal.
Yeah, that was surprising.
And
I know.
It made us want to, it made me, like I was in the room, it made me want to step up. And I was like, how can I give to him? And like, I believe if we like brought that into our marriages, like of how can I outgive you? How can I pour into you? But then people get stuck because they're like, I gave once and then she didn't reciprocate, or I gave once and then she like didn't take it the way I wanted to. Like there's these expectations. This is such a loaded conversation.
Yeah.
But what's coming up?
There's a great book by Dallas Willard called Renovation of the Heart. It's a pretty deep read, but it just talks about how Christ eventually can start to renovate your heart where you can come from a posture like that, right? Because good luck on your own. Because what happens is in most relationships, they're looking for what they can get. And that may be subconsciously. They don't even know that they're looking for what they get. It's not even conscious. They think that, oh, I'm doing something nice, or oh, I am giving, but it's usually for something in return. And so when we can switch our posture from what can I get to what can I give, like and we use that term unconditional. How do I really give all of myself in this relationship without keeping score, right? How do I give all of myself? And that's kind of the journey we want to challenge people with, because that was challenging for me. I would do things in the relationship and I would expect something in return. Like if I showed up and I gave flowers and I wrote notes, I would expect you to love me. But sometimes you wouldn't show up that way, the way I quote unquote wanted you to. And so then I have to question myself at that point and say, well, why was I doing those things? Right? Why was I actually doing those things? Was it for her or was it for me? And so that's a deeper conversation when we give. And how do we switch it from, hey, what can I get? And so in so many marriages, we see that. We see relationships, we see couples that they're bitter. They become bitter or resentful because they haven't gotten what they wanted. So again, are you in the relationship, and that's a part of it, but are you in the relationship to give love or to get love primarily, right? And if we're coming from a Christian perspective, right, it's about giving love. It's about giving of yourself.
Just stuck on that. I mean, I didn't even know that I was in the relationship for what I could get. Like, I didn't realize my selfishness. I just thought that's how it was. Like, a conditional love was a natural response. I think that's part of our sinful nature, right? Like, conditionally, like, but what's crazy about women, or what it makes me think about, is Skylar can spend the entire weekend with me, and Monday, like, I need him to pour into me still. But Monday, he doesn't need me to pour into him necessarily. Like, I just think as women, we just have these. And so sometimes I feel like that's confusing for men, because they're like, wait a minute, I spent time with her. Like, I did this stuff. But then, like, we still need it. Like, it's like it's never enough. But maybe it's never enough because, like, I was focused, because I am focusing on me, right? And it makes me think that sometimes people think they're giving, but it's not, they're not looking at the other person. They're not looking outward to see if it's actually received. Because when you're giving from a place of what can I get out of it, right? You're like, there's just this expectation. But if you think you're giving and it's not landing right, do you even know if it's not landing right? Like, right? Like, sometimes we give and we show up, and a husband says, but I did connect with her, right? I did give her flowers. Well, what if she hates flowers and she's told you that, but you keep giving her flowers? Like, there's going to be a disconnect in where you think you're showing up versus what's actually happening. So you have to not, like, it's like you got to see what's happening on the other side. Be curious enough about your spouse to know, like, is this landing? Like, when I'm moving towards you to connect, are we actually connecting?
Yeah, it's not always we're actually we have a seminar going on right now, and we're talking about our underlying motives, right? And what are our motives underneath things? Because so many times we do things and we think we're clear on our motives, but we actually are not. And so and our spouses can sometimes feel that, right? Do we do things begrudgingly?
Yeah.
Do we do things to say, hey, well, I did this, or are we doing that to give love and to show love?
Yeah, a big conversation we have is have to versus get to. Very clearly, like Skylar helped me learn this lesson. I was talking about our son, and I was like, I don't want to have to be his playmate. I don't want to have to sit on the floor with him. I don't want to have to, I don't want to have to do this. I don't want to have to do that. He's like, babe, I think you got it all wrong. You know that you get to play with our son, that you are fortunate enough to have a healthy child that wants to play with you, that loves you, and you're coming at it from this whole stance of you have to. And I think it's easy for us to do that in marriage. Like, I have to have sex with my husband, or I have to love her, or I have to be romantic. And yet it's like, there's this opportunity. It's like, I am the one woman in the world that gets to meet some of your deepest needs. And if I looked at that as a have to, I wouldn't even have to say it. Kind of like what you said. Like, someone's mad without them saying they're mad, right?
Back to posture.
You understand the
body
language.
Yeah, you feel the posture, you feel the attitude behind it.
Mm-hmm. And so one of my postures was keeping score, right? Like, I would constantly be keeping score. And it seemed that when I kept score, you could do 10 great things, but then that one thing would like wipe out all the other things. Because I was just like, there's also a
That's what was happening. It all makes sense now.
What?
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But like, when I'm keeping score, I'm like, what's in it for me? Like, am I winning or am I losing? Am I giving too much? It's like this playing, we often talk about playing not to lose. Like, I was playing not to lose. That was another one of my postures. I was going to make sure that if
you were protected, you were safe.
Yes, that I wasn't going to outgive you, or that you weren't going to hurt me again, or I wasn't going to put myself in that position again. I wasn't going to expose myself, right? But in that exposure is where we come together, right? In that unknown and the faith of like, we can do this and we're in this, but it takes like this ground, like there's like this foundation that we would need in order to have that though, right?
And what foundation are you talking about?
A foundation of like trust.
Yeah. Well, that was built, right? Because our foundation started on a rocky road of lack of trust. So that kind of evolved, right? Kind of that evolved, right? Because I had made some bad decisions and done some stupid stuff that had broken trust. And so we didn't have that initial foundation, and our marriage was good, but kind of rocky for a while because we didn't have that. And I think that's critical. You know what's great is the conversation around this, right? Of trust and intentionality, not intentionality of what are people's intentions? Right, and that's also a part of trust. I trust that you truly have good intentions for me. Even if you do things that are out of alignment with with that belief, I still have a core belief that you have good intentions. And
you have a core belief that everyone has good intentions, but we operate out of our own motives.
We do, and people are gonna show up in ways that are in alignment with their belief systems, and they're going to fail, and people are going to fail. They're going to break trust, and that's a whole other conversation on the different 3 levels of trust we should definitely have, because people think, well, how would I trust my husband or my wife? They did this to me. Well, you have to find a way to find that common bridge and bridge that gap, because if you can't find that trust and find a way to if you can't build that bridge, you're screwed. But you have to find a way to get trust, and trust is not only trusting someone that will only do what they say, because everybody will lie or break trust at some point, and we'll have that. But just know that everybody will break trust at some point. You're eventually going to break trust. You're eventually going to say something. I know, but in the future, you're going to say something or do something that you said you wouldn't.
It makes me think, I was at summer camp, and the message at this summer camp that we were at was, with these high schoolers, was God sees sin as sin. Like, sin is sin. So murder versus like anger, they're both sin, right? But he doesn't see them any different. So you line up these sins, but somehow in marriage, we say like, oh, well, you cheated on me, right? And I lied to you. but this has more weight. And clearly it kind of does have more weight, but like at the same time, we both broke trust. We both were out of integrity. We both did this. So like, it's like at one point we have to like get past like, what are we committed to creating? Am I committed to staying right about me not trusting you? Like I had to get over it one day, right? Like I had to like
eventually, if you
like, what do I want to have happen? Do I want to keep creating jealousy? Do I want to keep creating division? Do I want to keep creating disconnection? Do I want to keep creating all the things that I don't want because I didn't want them, but I was creating it based on what I was focused on.
Oh, it's so good. I mean, that's a whole conversation in and of self. Is what right? How do you when someone cheats or there's a major break in trust, how do you recover from that? And it starts with the decision and the interest in, hey, I am going to make an effort to recover from this. I want to forgive you. I want to move on from this. And that posture, right? And because what happens is when you've had trust broken, guess what you start doing? You start keeping track. You start keeping score. Yeah. You say, okay, well, this happened. Let's start keeping track of this stuff. And that does not serve a relationship at all. And so we have to turn off that part of our brain that decides to start keeping track and start keeping score. Say, I'm not going to keep score in the relationship no matter what. I'm not going to keep track of how many nice things you do or don't do.
I'm going to focus on me, right? I'm going to focus on how can I pour into the relationship? Who's God called me to be as a wife? Who's God called me to be as a woman? So, because I can't control you, right? But I can control me. And what I've found to be true in our marriage is that when I focus on me and how can I serve you, and that be my focus, or like, how can I serve the Lord through serving you and get outside myself, get outside my conditional love barriers, get outside of looking for what you're doing. It's like, you probably started it, but I'm saying like, but when you did that, I then came around and wanted to meet your needs. And then you layer on top of that, you meeting my needs. And then I layer on top of that, meeting your needs. Like, and we just continue to serve each other in this posture of how can I serve you? And just, I feel like so many couples are on the opposite posture. They're on the like, how can I protect myself? And how can I protect myself? And how can I protect myself? I'm not gonna put myself out there and do something because she's not gonna get it back because she's done this and because she's done that. Like so often it's like, it's contingent upon all the past. But like, what if every day was a reset? And you're like, okay, like how can I, and you took the posture, like how can I serve this person that I could potentially have the most amazing, like it could be heaven on earth in my marriage, right? The oneness that God designed in it. And
heaven on earth doesn't mean there's no conflict.
Yes.
Right, which was our last conversation. There's no conflict. There's no issues. Heaven on earth. Some of our greatest times together have been after a deep conflict. You know what I mean? So that's like heaven on earth means that it's just a level of intentionality and engagement and love and just fun and playfulness. And so, yeah, I think it's a worthy cause, something worthy to go after is how do I make heaven on earth in my marriage, right? What do I have to do? How do I have to show up personally, not how the other person? Our mind's always on them. How do I have to show up? What attitude do I have to have? What selfless behavior? How do I focus more on outgiving my spouse and outdo my spouse from gifts, whether or not she or he gives back? How do I just outdo them and to show up for them? That is a powerful place to operate from.
So for this week, that's your challenge. Like, pay attention to your posture. How are you showing up in your marriage for your spouse? Is it, what can I get out of this? Is everything a selfish view and a selfish lens? Or are you outwardly focused saying, how can I pour into them as much as I can? And regardless of what I get, how can I continue to pour into them and see what's actually going on? Like, be their helpmate that God intended and come alongside them when they need you.